When we've lost somebody who we love, we think about what was important to the person whom we loved. What did they embody? What was of great value to them? Is there some way that we can keep that part of their spirit alive?
We've honored Kirk in a number of ways that have helped say goodbye. We had the chance to make him an organ donor. In his final gifts to the world to help other people live on was just really totally within his spirit.
One woman shared a story at the blood drive where the reason she had decided to donate blood that day was that when her brother passed away, she found that he had donated, and she's like, you know what? I had no idea that he had done this. And so she donates blood now in honor of her brother and the love that he had for others.
One instance, a little girl that enjoyed gardens and rock gardens and liked to design them, one of the things that her friends did months after her death was to have a rock garden dedication at their school. And we had a butterfly release. That was so cathartic to see those butterflies all flutter away.
Living through your grief, how do we bring that person whom we loved into our hearts and carry them in our hearts for the rest of our lives? Doing something in honor and memory of the person, those are some things that can help with working through the grief process.
My brother Kirk, he was in a car accident and was helicoptered to a ICU unit. We just knew that he was in a coma, unconscious, and it turned out that it was irrevocable and he was never going to be able to get out of it. He was wild at heart. He loved freedom. He loved nature. He loved, just being out and about. We had all understood that if he was never going to be able to get out of the coma, then he wouldn't want to live being like this. First of all, Kirk was an Eagle Scout, and when he was in high school, Kirk's Eagle Scout project was doing a clothing drive for homeless teens, and there was a newspaper article written about him in our local paper. The theme that's most prominent in Kirk's life is he was always of service. He traveled to Fiji for a personal development workshop. He met a Fijian family there, and he ended up staying in touch and sending money back to them. One of them named their child after him. He was so proud of being able to impact them and, to really make a difference. So through this process, I learned a lot about organ donation. There's hundreds of thousands of people in the US alone waiting for organs. It's also really complicated to find a match. It's complicated to have someone pass in the right timeline and way that they could actually use those organs. What happened in the case of Kirk is that he ended up passing within the right time allotment to be able to donate his heart, his 2 kidneys, and liver. The hospital had a beautiful tradition where anyone who was an organ donor, they do a salute to them. So they had all doctors and nurses line the hallway. And as he was pushed in front of us, we played a bagpipe rendition of Amazing Grace. This beautiful moment of probably 50 people, saluting and tearing up. He really got like a hero's goodbye. My mom and I finally got to a point where we were ready to write an obituary. This was like a really magical moment. I think a lot of people say that sometimes, when someone passes, messages from them come back. And we were about to write his obituary. Mom said, let's stop and say a prayer and say, Kirk, we invite you in and we want to ask you, what do you want written, and help us know what you want written. And she went to go grab a notebook to be able to write. When she opened it, it was actually his notebook, and he had written his own obituary. And he did this through a workshop he was participating in. It was uncanny. And so we actually got to use some of his own words in his obituary. So when I submitted the obituary, I couldn't help but think this is an interesting story to talk about his organ donation and how he was still of service. That ended up resulting in a front page print story on Christmas Day. So an interesting twist to the organ donation is that Because we are able to source recommendations for people in need, one of them we've actually done a Zoom call with. He's a gentleman and received one of Kirk's kidneys. My mom always loves this remark that he shared, which was that the doctors were like, "This is the healthiest, pinkest kidney I've ever seen." And Kirk was a proud raw foods vegan, super into his health, runner. And so it was really beautiful to talk to them, how grateful they were and how grateful we were to just connect and hear their story. I just had so much compassion for people who are like sitting there waiting and needing to know like their life won't be able to continue without this gift. For Kirk, we decided to do a celebration of life. The local parish we grew up with is Resurrection Parish in Santa Rosa, California. What was beautiful is the priest actually had his own organ donation, so he really related to Kirk's story. The church was very filled. There's probably 100 people there. And I think some of the most moving elements were that he was a cross-country runner in high school. The coach and one of his teammates spoke about Kirk's impact on their life. And it was stories that I hadn't heard. It was so healing for everyone. And we felt like we really gave him a beautiful send-off. For him to, in his final gifts to the world, to help other people live on was just really totally within his spirit and a beautiful part of who he was.
One of the things that you might do for holidays is when you all get together, maybe set a place for the person who is missing at the end of the table. Light a candle, have a prayer, go around the table and talk about the gratitude you have towards that person or a favorite story. There's nothing wrong with laughter at these times or telling stories that fill your heart with joy. That's all a part of life. So I think it's important that you have opportunity to share and remember in any way that you can.
Each person, it's going to be a different thing that we have to figure out, but that's that last task of grief, that when we can figure out how to carry them, then we're moving on with our lives and they're staying alive with us.
What's been soothing about Kirk's passing is knowing that he is now reunited with our father and our other relatives up in heaven. For all of us, and especially for me, I can visualize them together. And when I have these moments of wanting to connect them or thinking of them, it's like this visual of them above and together. And also like thinking they're having a pretty good time, and that they're always just, I guess, a bit closer now that they're in the afterlife.